All right, so my first pet peeve when it comes to podcast audio is audio that sounds just unnatural. And by unnatural, that could be it could be audio that sounds boxy. It could be bass and bass heavy. It could be high end heavy. And these unnatural sounds typically come from frequencies that are either too loud or not loud enough. And that will make more sense as we go into the fix for this particular audio issue. What causes this could be a number of things. It could be the microphone that you're using. Different microphones record audio that sounds different. A lavalier microphone is going to sound different than this microphone, than a shotgun microphone. There's also room acoustics that's going to impact how your dialogue sounds, how your audio sounds. But most people don't know that there's a relatively simple way to shape your audio using any audio editor. And that's with an effect called a Parametric Equalizer or Parametric EQ. So let's jump into Adobe Audition and I will show you how to use it. So what we have here is a little sample clip for you that we'll be using throughout the episode so you can kind of hear how the different audio effects are impacting it. I'll just play it for you. This is unedited in every way. Welcome to the Creative Control Room podcast, episode number 110. I'm your operator, Ryan Hafey. You get the idea. Okay, so this is untouched audio, unedited. It's just, I recorded it straight into Adobe Audition. And we want to touch this up a little bit. Now this audio, this microphone sounds pretty good by itself, but there are ways to make it sound a little bit better. So what I want to do is go up to effects here. And again, we're working in Adobe Audition. And this is in filter and EQ and then parametric equalizer. And that's what this little pop-up will pop up. That's what the equalizer looks like. It might look a little bit different depending on the audio editor you're using, but let me do my best to try to explain what we're looking at here. So on the left side, you have a gain knob or whatever you want to call it. If you crank it up, it's going to increase or reduce the gain. We're actually not going to be touching that. In this case, I'm going to zero that back out. On the bottom axis here, what we're looking at are frequencies in hertz, all the way from 0 up to 30,000. And then on the right side is a kind of a decibel gauge. It shows you the different decibel levels of the frequencies that you're working with. Then you have this line that goes down the center. Right now it's zeroed out. And this is the line that we're going to manipulate to kind of shape our audio a little bit. And then down here, you have some different options. You have these kind of different channels. And if you see like these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, these associate with the numbers on that center line that goes across. Now, if you want to just take the shortcut, if you're working in Adobe Audition, you could typically go down to Vocal Enhancer, and that does a pretty good job out of the box of cleaning up the audio a little bit. But we're not going to use that, just so you can have a little bit better understanding of how it actually works. So what you want to do, first of all, what I typically like to do is I like to activate the high pass filter and crank that up to about 80 hertz. And this is basically going to cut off everything underneath 80 hertz. So like very low end noises. If there's any low end hums in your audio, it's going to get rid of those. And when it comes to human dialogue, there's not a lot going on under 80 hertz anyway. So you can go ahead and get rid of those. I'm going to do the same with the low pass filter and change that value to 12,000. Once again, not much going on above 12,000 hertz. These are your high end frequencies. You don't need them in your dialogue, so you can just go ahead and get rid of them right off the bat. Now, typically speaking, this will vary, but typically speaking, boxiness and some other just kind of unwanted sounds and frequencies usually are around the 300 hertz range, and also again at 1,000 hertz. So the way to get rid of them is to reduce how loud those frequencies are in your audio. And the easiest way to do that, let's say, you can really grab any of these different channels that you want to. I'm going to go ahead and grab number 2 since it's close to this 300 hertz frequency, and you can move it around, and I can go to in the general area of 300 hertz and just bring this down. So what this is doing is reducing the amount of that frequency in your audio. So once again, I'm going to play a little bit of my original test clip so you can kind of hear what it sounds like. This is, let me zero this back out here, and you can hear what this sounds like without any edits. Again, this is the time you'll want to put on headphones if you don't have some on already. Okay, so this is unedited. This is before. Welcome to the Creative Control Room Podcast, episode number 110. I'm your operator, Ryan Hafey. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to crank this 300 hertz frequency volume all the way up. I'm going to add a lot of gain to it. I'm going to go all the way to the top here. I'm also going to increase this Q/width value, and this is going to make it so that I'm not impacting by raising the frequency gain. If you see when I lower that the Q value, it spreads out and it's going to impact a lot of the other frequencies around it. So if I increase that value, it's going to kind of narrow it in right on that frequency, and you can kind of hear how it sounds. So let's play it back again. Welcome to the Creative Control Room Podcast, episode number 110. So you can kind of hear the boxiness in there. Now what I want to do is I'm going to play it back again, but as I play it back, I'm going to sweep that number 2 channel back and forth, and that's going to emphasize the frequencies as it goes along. So we're basically amplifying the frequencies across the whole spectrum there, and you'll kind of see how those different frequencies impact the sound. So let's go back to the beginning here and we'll play it back. Welcome to the Creative Control Room Podcast, episode number 110. I'm your operator, Ryan Hafey, and today I'm going to reveal my pet peeves when it comes to podcast audio. So you can kind of hear the different ways that the different frequencies impact the audio. Now, again, if you're not super, if you don't have the, if you're listening to this and you're not able to figure out like what frequencies are really giving you kind of these strange tones, again, you can just go back to 300 hertz and 1000 hertz and pull a little bit away from there. But if you are able to kind of pick some of those unnatural tones out, then you can use that technique of sweeping across to point them out. So if I'm going to kind of hover, I'm going to go back to the beginning, play it back, and sort of hang around that 300 hertz range, and you can kind of hear. Let's see if you can hear when the boxiness is kind of like at its peak. Here we go. Welcome to the Creative Control Room Podcast, episode number 110. I'm your operator, Ryan Hafey, and today I'm going to reveal my pet peeves when it comes to podcast audio. And so that may or may not have been pretty clear to you, but for the sake of this demonstration, I'm going to go ahead and take out about 6.5 or so decibels from that 300 hertz frequency. I'm also going to reduce that Q value so that it kind of fades into that. It's not solely, focusing on that 300 hertz. It's spread out at least a little bit, kind of like fading in and fading out of that frequency, I guess you could say. And then I'm also going to do the same with the 1000 hertz frequency. I'm going to pull about the same amount out. So what I will do now is I will play the before. I'll play a few seconds of before, and then I'll play it now with those frequencies reduced a little bit. Welcome to the Creative Control Room Podcast, episode number 110. I'm your operator, Ryan Hafey. All right, that was before, and then this is with those corrections. Welcome to the Creative Control Room Podcast, episode number 110. I'm your operator, Ryan Hafey. So to my ear, it sounds a little less boxy, a little bit more full. And then from here, you can continue to fine tune. You might find that you need a little bit more low end on your voice. Actually, I find the low end to be pretty good. In fact, if I was going to do anything to this, I'd probably add a little bit of high end to mine. So I'm going to just use this H channel here and just raise that up just a little bit. Let's see how this sounds. Welcome to the Creative Control Room Podcast, episode number 110. I'm your operator, Ryan Hafey. So that's not too bad. And then let's play the before one more time. Welcome to the Creative Control Room Podcast, episode number 110. So that's the general idea of the parametric EQ. It's really helpful, I find, too, especially if you use lavalier mics, because lavalier mics tend to sound very muffled. And there are ways that you can go through. You can find the frequencies that are causing that muffled sound, and you can modify them so that it doesn't sound quite as muffled. So experiment with Parametric Equalizer, and you will find that your audio quality will improve pretty quickly.